Welcome back, fam, to another episode of the Creatress of Freedom Podcast. Hello, hello, hello. I'm so happy that you're here. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I am really excited to delve into today's topic because this has actually been a really big theme inside my paid community right now. And I know that it is a topic that needs to be talked about. But before we do that, if you are new here, welcome, welcome. I'm so happy that you're here. If you're an OG, welcome back, Queen. You know that I love having you here, and it really is an absolute pleasure and an honor to drop on in with you throughout your day today. I know you could be doing a million and one things. You could be listening to a million other podcasts as well, but instead you're here. So I don't take that lightly. So thank you for being here. I'm so happy that you're here. So, I'm Annie, if you are new here, and I am the creator of the Creatress of Freedom podcast, and also that movement as well. And I just really think that today's conversation, today's topic is a very important conversation that we need to have. And the theme of today's topic, which you've already seen in the podcast title, so you know what you're getting yourself into, is why do your staff hate your KPIs that you have set? So I'm going to go through some some understanding of what you need to know, and then some practical things today as well, so that you can start to shift the way that you're leading your team if you find that your staff are not meeting KPIs. Now, before we get into it all, I just want to say, first of all, that if you do have staff that are not meeting KPIs, just know you're not alone, right? You are not alone. Literally, I would say 99.9% of the salon owners that come into my spaces don't have staff meeting KPIs consistently. That's the key word here, right? Is consistently. They might have them meet one week, and then they don't have them meet them for the next 3 weeks. And so I've been working alongside my clients, and I've been really studying the psychology and trying to figure out what is going on here. Something is missing, because I'm hearing my clients say that they're setting these KPIs. They are telling their staff what their KPIs are, and their staff are like, yep, all good, amazing. And then they get to the end of the week, and the business owner is like, what the fuck? Did she even listen to anything that I said? And so I want to give you some tips and some strategies on how you can actually have your staff meet KPIs. So the first thing that I want to talk about is you must know all your numbers, right? This is really crucial, because if you don't understand all of your business numbers, it's going to be really hard for you to meet KPIs or to understand how to set KPIs, right? So the number one key is to fully understand your entire background of your business numbers. So your wages, your expenses, your own wage, your taxes component, your superannuation, everything, the shipping costs for the stock that you order, everything, right? And inside my space, inside FSM, I have a whole software that's been built out that's called Pricing to Profit. And what it does is it enables you to plug in all of the information. It's all templated, so there's no guessing what do you need to plug in, right? It's all there. You just need to know what the numbers are, and you need to plug in the numbers. But as for the list of everything that you need to have, it's all pre-formatted into this software. Anyway, and so that is the first key, is to know your numbers. The second thing is to know what your staff's wages are and what you want to have them meet when it comes to a KPI. So when it does come to a KPI, there's different ways that you can set it up. The minimum rule for setting KPIs is usually 3 times their weekly wage, right? But I have had many different scenarios that have been set with different clients, because everyone's salon is different and it's unique. And so 3 times the setting the KPI may not actually be enough. So to give you an example, one of my clients had a huge team. She had 14 staff, but out of the 14 staff, I think it was 4 or 5 of them were juniors. They were apprentices. And so it's very hard for a apprentice who is, first year, second year, who doesn't really have much of a clientele yet. It's very hard for them to meet KPIs. So what we ended up doing is we put in place that her staff needed to hit 4 times their wage to make up for the juniors that couldn't necessarily hit KPI targets, right? So this is why it's not a one shoe fits all. It really is unique to your business model. It's really unique to how you want to set the structure up to make sure that it's fully supporting the business. Because if you set KPIs for junior staff that don't even have a clientele yet, that's going to make it very hard for them to even hit that KPI. And then what that's going to do is going to impact their confidence, because they're like, well, every week I have these KPIs that I can't even possibly meet because I'm not even working on clients. So having that strategy set up for this particular client worked really well, because it meant that her qualified and her senior staff were able to cover that wage essentially for the juniors. So this is where it's also like really knowing and understanding your business as well. And like I said, it's not a one shoe fits all. It really is based on what you want to achieve, right? So that's an example. So usually what I encourage my clients to do is to go 3.5. So their wage amount times 3.5. Now, the thing is that if they have a different hourly rate for a Saturday, like these are the things that you have to factor in. And this is why I'm saying to you, it's so important that you fully understand your business numbers. You fully understand your staff's numbers, because whatever they get paid, if they get paid one week different, and maybe they're on fortnightly pay, like one of my other clients, her staff are on a fortnightly pay. And so one week, her KPIs are going to be very different to the second week, because they are working more hours on the second week than they are on the first week. So it's not, when you're setting KPIs, it's not a set and forget, right? It's not like, okay, well, this is your wage. Let me just pull up my calculator here. So it's not like, okay, so you get paid, $8.50 every single week. Then we times that by 3.5. So your KPI is 2,975. And like, that's just set and forget for the rest of the year, right? It's KPIs are not like that. And this is why it's so important that you have time off the salon floor to set out these KPIs, because you should be looking at it from a week to week basis. You should be looking at it going, okay, well, last week such and such didn't hit her KPIs. Last week such and such did hit her KPIs. So like, this is what this looks like moving forward. And you get to really support your team. It's not, this is your KPI, set and forget. And like, we get to the end of the month and then I'm frustrated at you because you didn't even hit any of your KPIs. Like, no, that's not how we lead. We lead with precision, right? We lead knowing exactly what's going on in the back end. We're not blind. We're not oblivious. And the only way that you're going to be able to do this and strategically do this and be thorough is by you not working on the salon floor, right? You have to be able to have that allocated time to build up your team, to have them understand like what is their KPIs. So there's different ways that you can do this. You can have your KPIs set on a weekly basis, or you can have them set on a monthly basis. Now, sometimes a monthly basis works really well because it allows for fluid, right? It allows for client cancellations. It allows for sicknesses. If your staff have got sicknesses, if you've got staff that are going off to training or going off to TAFE, like it allows for a little bit of fluid and a little bit of movement. And it's up to you to then make sure that you're explaining to your staff like where they are at in meeting these KPIs. So there's different ways that you can do it. I had another client who came to me and she was like, when I'm setting out these KPIs, 1 week of the month, well, it was actually 1 week every 5 weeks, she has her juniors go away for TAFE for that whole week. And she's like, so, do I set a KPI for that week when they're not even in the salon? And I was like, well, there's different ways that you can do this. So I'll share with you the strategy that I shared with her. You can just set it out at the 4 weeks and not worry about having any KPIs for that week that they're away. And you just purely focus on the KPIs on the weeks that they are working. Or what you do is you work it out and then you divide it by the 5 weeks. And then that would drop down that amount, but it would be spread out over the 5 weeks so that they have to hit, that KPI. even though they're not in the salon, right? So there's different ways that you can work out different strategies. So this is something that you need to understand, and you can't just throw a number at your staff. Like, for example, I just gave you before, 2,975. That's your target, that's your goal, that's what you have to hit, right? You can't just give them that number, because what is going to happen is your staff are going to get so overwhelmed by that stat. They're going to be like, well, I don't like I don't even know how I'm going to make that kind of money, especially if they've seen what their predicted value is for the week. Like, let's say they got $500 in, and now all of a sudden they've got to try and make 3 grand. Your staff don't look at numbers the way that you look at numbers, right? They don't need to. They don't have any reason to look at the numbers like you do. But what we're doing as leaders is we're giving them this information as if they understand the numbers like we do, and they don't. And so what happens is they see that number, they feel very overwhelmed by it, and then once they're overwhelmed by it, they're like, I'm not even going to fucking try, right? Because this is just impossible. And then all of these stories and all of these beliefs come in, and they're like, this is because my boss is just greedy and she wants more money, and like they don't understand why this number is put in place. And so then they start to get resentment towards you. So it's really important from your perspective that, yes, you know what the number is, but now what you have to do as a boss is you have to break it down and talk to them in the terms of services and retail, right? So let's say that the KPI was this number of 2,975. So then what you would do is you break it down even further, and you go, okay, so if this is what they need to make, and this is how much they've got booked in for this week. Let's say, they've got 2,000 booked in for the week. So they would need to have this flexibility of trying to add an extra $975 to their week. And so what your job is now is not to say, okay, you now need to come up with $975, right? Like, again, then when we talk in numbers, they don't understand it. They're overwhelmed, and they feel, well, that's not fair because now I'm going to have to make $975 and you only pay me fucking $800, right? Because they've got no understanding of how a business operates. So when they see numbers like this, they become resentful towards you. So what your job is to do is to know the number, but then to break it down, right? So let's say, I'm literally going to work this out with you in real time right now. So let's say she had to make $975 extra for this week. This is also assuming that no clients are going to cancel and that there's going to be no downgrading either that's going to happen. So let's say she has 30 clients that are booked in, right? So we can go that number, 975, divide that by 30 clients, which means that each of those clients need to have an extra $32.50 that needs to be added to their service, right? So then we break it down even more, because again, we're still talking in numbers right now, and remember that our staff don't understand it in numbers. So then what you would do is go, okay, so what this is going to look like is for those 30 clients, I'm going to go over this, right? But let's say your retail is $25, right? So we minus $25 off that. There's $7.50 that is remaining on them hitting this KPI. So that would mean that they need to sell one retail product to 30 clients, and there's still $7.50 that's remaining. So let's say that needs to be a treatment, right? So then it's like, what you need to do. So now what we've done is, instead of telling the stylist, the therapist, okay, you've got $975 that you need to make up for this week, what you're actually going to do is you're going to say, okay, so you've got 30 clients in this week. What I would love to see is that every single one of those clients walks away with one product, and every single one of those 30 clients walks away with like some form of an add-on. So whether that's a treatment, whether that is, like a brow tint, depending on like what your services are, you will know what your pricing is. So you'll be able to really hone it in on them. Pardon me. So what this is doing is it's breaking it right down, and you should be looking at these stats from a weekly basis. Yes, you can have your overall monthly basis. So if one of the weeks they do have less income coming in or things shuffle, then what you're supposed to do as a boss is you're supposed to say, okay, so this was your results from last week. You didn't quite hit your KPI, you're short. So what you now need to do for this week is, depending on what the numbers are, again, this is why it's so important for you to understand the numbers. You would be like, okay, so what I need you to focus on is 2 retail products to each of those clients, and a treatment, or like an upgrade, or maybe it's like they have to work on 3 products per client that's coming in. And so what you're doing is you're breaking it down into bite size, right? When you say one product and one, like treatment, or one eyebrow tint add on, like that seems so doable, right? And it's like what you would also do until they start to get familiar with this is you would walk them through their column, and you'll be like, okay, so, for like this week, you've got such and such in, such and such in. So like she would probably be a really great person to have a conversation with about XYZ. This client would be a really good person to have that conversation. And so you're planting the seed for them while they're learning this new skill, right? Because you can look at the appointment book and you can be like, oh yeah, like such and such should have XYZ. They're coming in and they're looking at the appointment book and they're like, Susie's booked in for a full head of foils. Cool. Just going to do the full head of foils, right? They're not looking at it from a different perspective. So it's your job as a leader to actually educate and to train and to lead them into figuring out what it is that they're actually looking at, right? It's not that they're looking at it and going, oh, it's a full head of foils. It's like, no, it's a full head of foils. And, this client was also here 12 weeks ago. So because she was here 12 weeks ago, she's probably going to need to have a treatment. She's not actually booked in for a haircut. So she's probably going to need to also have a haircut as well, because it's been 12 weeks, right? So it's really about like understanding what they've got booked in, and it's your job to help them see it from a different perspective. So this is what I want you to start to focus on. Now, I also have created a new framework inside FSM that is a new KPI tracking sheet. And so what it does is it enables you to write down absolutely everything, and like as in your staff, and then it breaks it down to like what their hourly rate is, what their Saturday rate is, and then it calculates, it auto populates what their weekly KPI would be, or what their monthly KPI would be if you're basing it off a monthly. But then there's like a whole section that breaks it down into like, what does this look like for services, and what does this look like for units per retail? And so then you can then give that information to that person, and you can go off the data that you are collecting. And then on this spreadsheet, down the bottom, there's different tabs as well for each single staff member. And so each tab is specific to each staff. So what this allows you to do is to see month by month, have they met KPIs? What have they not met? And you can start to read the patterns that are going on. And then you can like work out what training you might need to do. You can work out, is this person even like a valuable asset to the business anymore? Or are they not listening to the feedback that you're giving them, and they're not hitting these KPIs? Like you can really see the data from a very clear perspective per each individual staff member. So that framework is found inside FSM, which is my 12-month mentorship program, where there's a million different frameworks, different strategies, different tools that you can use inside your business. There's a whole section in there around leadership, around HR, to really help support you with building and growing your team. And there's also monthly calls as well, if that was because that's going to be really helpful for you when you are trying to implement the things and then you're like, things aren't working, right? You can bring yourself to the monthly calls, and I can help you navigate what tweaks and changes we might need to make. So just to recap all of this, it's really important, number one, for you to know exactly what your numbers are. It's really important for you to have the time, the allocated time on a weekly basis to figure out what your KPIs need to be for each of your staff, and for you to also help break it down and talk to them in their language, not in business CEO language vibes. And then you should be also having monthly meetings with each of your staff individually where you're going over these KPIs, right? And you are giving them feedback and you are saying, this was what improved, this is what didn't improve, this is what I need to see improve next month. What are we going to do? What support do you need from me to hit this, this KPI? And then you can start to really support your team in the way that they need supporting. So no more telling them the huge number that they have to meet. That number is purely for you to know. It's your job to break it right down to a weekly, daily basis and explain to them what it is that they would need to be working on and what they would need to be focusing on. And so this then brings me to my next point, is that you should have some kind of communication channel where you are communicating with your team, especially if you're not on the floor. If you're not on the floor, then like this is part and parcel of being a leader, right? Is still having your hand on the pulse and making sure that you can make any necessary tweaks or changes as need be. And so having some form of communication platform is amazing. I recommend all my clients to start with Slack. But there's lots of, you can do Telegram, you can do Facebook, you can do Facebook groups, you can do WhatsApp. But I personally love the idea of using Slack because Slack allows you to create different categories where you can put, this is team meeting category. This is, you can have your individual staff where you can have private messages to each of your staff if there's something that you need to address privately with them. You can have, like, this is what our goal is for this week. This is a celebration channel. This is like a social channel. Like if anyone wants to catch up on the weekend, like you can really use it to create proper areas where your staff need to come in. One of my clients has two older staff members, and they were like, I don't want to be a part of the group chat. They had a messenger. And she's like, you guys are just like dropping random shit in there. And she's like, I don't want to get the notifications all the time. But what we were finding was that she was actually having important information that these two staff members were missing out on. So I invited her to create this system with her team so that there were still channels that her staff that were older need to be a part of, but then like the chit chat conversations channels, like, they don't need to be a part of that. And this way, everyone is still getting the necessary information that they need to have in order to be a part of the team and in order to continue to grow the business. So that is my little wrap up today. If you would love to get your hands on these frameworks, come and speak to me. You can either send me a message on the Instagram or Facebook, or you will see in the show notes a link towards FSM, and you can literally sign up and you can join straight away. No prerequisites for it, but if you do have some questions around it, then I'm 100% here to answer any questions. I am very, very confident that this space will turn your entire world around. But hopefully this has been I know this has been a really powerful episode to help you understand your KPIs and why your staff might actually hate the KPIs is because probably the way that you're delivering it to them right now. So hopefully this changes the way that you now lead your team, and hopefully you also take a little bit of responsibility for understanding that your staff are not meeting KPIs because they haven't had the best leader and they haven't had someone that actually fully understands how to break it all down for them. So if this has landed, if you've had some aha moments, I always love hearing from you. So please come and let me know, and I will talk to you real soon. All right, bye for now.